Yesterday we read or heard Pashat Zachor, to remember, to obliterate the memory of Amalek. Timche et zecha Amalek lo tishkach. It's interesting, it does not say Timche et Amalek. Blot out Amalek. Blot out the memory of Amalek. And this is followed also by the wording of the Rambam when he speaks about the corrupt and wicked Canaanite nations, that the people are asked also to not let them live unless they change. He said that Va'abat Zichram, they no longer exist. Why not? Because Sancheriv came and confused all the races, all the nations. They're all intermingled. Therefore, we can't really identify them clearly. But the memory is something else. The memory is the impact. So when it says Simchet Zeich Amalek, it means those who continue the characteristic of Amalek, which is V'lo Yarei Elokim, which means you have no conscience. You want to remove the conscience from the world. So in connection with this, the question arises, do we have Amalek today? Surely we don't have them as a definitely assigned racial group or national group. Nevertheless, there is a cryptic passage based upon Tehillim, chapter 140, which deals with the terrible sufferings, also individually of David Amalek, whose life was constantly threatened. But like we know, that this was just used as a means to describe the threats upon the people of Israel, which have threatened us from the birth of the nation until today. And there are many chapters of Tehillim that will deal with this situation. So we find a Talmudical passage in Megillah, Tractate Megillah, where it says, on page 6a, Al titein ma'ave rasha zemamo al tafek yarum musela. That there's a verse in verse 9 of that chapter which says, grant not Hashem the desires of the wicked one. Do not remove his nose ring, that they should feel exalted. Yaakov said in front of the Holy One, blessed be He, Master of the universe, don't allow Esau, the wicked one, to fulfill the desire of his heart. Do not remove his nose ring. And this nose ring is connected with the expression used also in Tehillim elsewhere. You must remember Hazir Miya'ar, that Esau is compared to the Chazir. You can only control it if it's a wild swine, is that don't remove his nose ring. Who does this refer to? It refers to Germania, which is an extension of Edom, of Rome. Because if they would go forth and fulfill the desire, they would destroy the entire world. Now this was mentioned, almost 2,000 years ago, before this was understood. However, we've unfortunately seen it fulfilled in terrible ways. So the spirit of Amalek, Zeicha Amalek, has been continued from really even through the time of the Middle Ages. There was cruelty in many different places, but there were specific, constant cycles of terrible persecutions against the Jewish people in that land, especially in the time of the Crusades and later the pogroms, although there were similar pogroms also from other nations. So I'll bring you here first of all, go back to some concepts. Rabbi Shalom Noach of Slonim Rebbe, he writes as follows, I'll quote his words. To remember what Amalek has done to us in our period, Hitler Yimach Shemo, is an inseparable part of the general mitzvah of Zachor Lo Tishkach. You should remember and never forget. As it says, Milchama L'Hashem Amalek midor ledor. It's from generation to generation. And the name of Hashem is not complete, nor is the throne complete, until his seed is erased. We don't know who his seed is. Which means until the source of this evil and the rulership of Zera Amalek will cease, which has been revealed in different periods in all its terror and corruption. No difference if it was Amalek or Agag or Haman or Hitler Yimach Shemo. They will all go down to destruction, and we must never take our mind away from what they did to us. Chalilu lanu lasir da'at lima she'olelu lanu. And now I want to quote you some interesting episodes that have to do with this. Now the Chasam Sofer lived in Frankfurt, and Frankfurt was also destroyed quite a few times. The Frankfurt Jewish area went through a number of pogroms, even to the extent that there was a special Purim fest celebrated also in Frankfurt when it was saved from cruel threats. So there was a very great saint who was a teacher of the Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer is well known as probably the greatest European Posek codifier who lived 200 years ago. And his teacher of the previous generation was Rabbi Nosson Adler, he was called. He was a very great man, also a Kabbalist, and an enormous scholar. So I'll quote you from his biography. When the Khatam Sofer was age 16, he finished learning the whole of Shas, and he was tested on it and knew it well. So he went to his teacher and said, how should I celebrate it? The seal. Teacher said, you should fast for 3 days. No, the concept is, Hashem has given you the power to do this. You have to fast, that you should be able to continue, it should give you the strength, and grow more in Torah. Until he grew enormously. But what happened? I mean, not to fast 3 days in continuity, that's forbidden. But broke the fast each night. But on the third night, the third fast, he felt a bit weak, as we can understand. So with his chaverim, with whom we learned together, they went a bit into the park, have some fresh air. When it came to the time of mincha, and they would have no time to find shul in the vicinity, so they said they'd fill up mincha in the field. So even in the middle of mincha, there came a non-Jew with a big stick, maybe even had sharp edges, and he started threatening them. He came a stick. So they thought it was really dangerous, because even in that time, I mean, the Jews were protected basically, but there were plenty of anti-Semitic individuals around. When they saw Jews, Jews had to, nevertheless, that a state general in the Judengasse, the Jewish street, intermingle too much, they'd get into trouble. Now he was near mincha time of the third day. So they all fled. But the Khatam Sof was engrossed in the tefillah, and he davened a long tefillah on that day. And he prayed to Hashem, he should help him in the future. So this, he said, this non-Jew with a stick, in fact, he waited till he finished. When he took the steps backwards, and there he was on top of him, threatening to give him a beating. So Khatam Sofer, a precocious, lively young man of 16, he just gave him a blow with his fist. But he was a much stronger fellow, always had a big stick. So he fell down, this non-Jew, and died. So of course he ran away because he didn't want to get into trouble.
Sounds like Moshe and the Egyptian
yes. So he went to his Rebbe and said, he told him what had happened with Nosson Adler. So this is what Nosson Adler said to him. He said to him that surely that guy was a seed of Amalek. And this was a special zchus given to him from heaven to be able to fulfill the mitzvah of blotting out Amalek literally. And it was in the zchut that he finished learning the Shas. Now, there was not only, he's known also for his Ruach HaKodesh, many said Ruach HaKodesh at a very, very, very high level. The Khatam Sofer was very solid, because he saw him. Many miracles came from this Nosson Adler.
Through him or from him?
So anyway, because really, I mean, naturally, it couldn't have killed him, because he's much weaker than this fellow. So stick with him with a sharp, to beat him up. So this gives us some indication of what happened throughout the centuries with the Zera Amalek And so I'll add to this something else. That the Imre Emes, that means the grandfather, the present great-grandfather, the present Gerer Rebbe, there in the way, when one of the Rabbonim, the Rav of Ansbach, who is called Pinchas Cohen, he met with him and he said to him, we have a tradition that the Germans are from the seed of Amalek, like is apparent from that Gemara. The Vilna Gaon said the same, it's Germany. Germany is the tefillah which Yaakov Avinu gave, expressed in Tehillim, that don't let him fulfill what he wants to do. Because if they would be able to fulfill what they want to do, they destroy the world. And then the Gemara goes on, or in Megillah, and describes the way in which the Roman Empire was divided into different groups. If you rule Germany was cut in different groups, but if they all unite, the Roman Empire, which had rulership over Europe, if they all get together and make one union, they could destroy the world. And that's the Zamam. That's one of their Yarumo. One of the things they might feel themselves über alles, very high, Yarumo. Deutschland über alles. I'll add to this what was declared by the Mittler Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, when he spoke about Medina and Ashkenaz and its king, its emperor Wilhelm, he said, I've known them for 31 years, it's time, and that's Amalek. What's it about Amalek? Reshit Goyim Amalek. The beginning of those nations who build themselves on hate and power is Amalek. Va'achariso adeh oved, Bilom, in his prophet says, but his end will be towards destruction. A similar aspect is when this Kaiser Wilhelm came to Jerusalem. At that time there were also quite a lot of German citizens, in both Jewish as well as Christians, who were also German citizens. So many also came from Germany or from Austria, many of the Jews who settled. So even most of the Rabbonim said, Kavod Malchot. We really have to welcome him and treat him as we do generally in all the Galut, the kings and the rulers of the countries where we are. Dirshu et Shalom Ha'ir, Shalom HaMalchut. And even you can say a bracha. When you see a king of the nations of the world, you can say, blessed is he who gives of his honor to flesh and blood. You're allowed to do that. And I must tell, by the way, I must tell you an illustration of this. And I think he was right in doing it. My son was a chaplain in the US Army. And when the then President Bush came to his group, I think it was in Fort. So he said to Brocha when he saw him, translated into English, and the response of President Bush was, the motto of our army is, for my God, my country. My God comes first. He deserved it. But when Kaiser Wilhelm came to Yerushalayim, so the chief rabbi then was Yosef Chaim Sonnenfeld, and he did not want to participate. He said, why? Because it's a sofek. You can't say definitely it's a sofek whether he's Amalek or not. And even if it doesn't want to make a bracha on the basis of that suspicion. And we know also that, I would connect with this, Kaiser Wilhelm, we can't say that he was specifically bad for the Jews. Not so, because the Jews who were loyal, they joined his army. And so since I was born in Frankfurt, the same city as Chassam Sofer, which you used before, and there was a spirit of loyalty also in the Torah community of Germany. Even the Orch and Ner, such a great Talmud Chacham, but I know that he gave honor to the kings of that country. But he died long before Kaiser Wilhelm. But his successors also honored Kaiser Wilhelm. And I had an uncle who was a brilliant young man, and he was one of those initiators of the Agudat Israel, but he had joined the army, and he was shot down, was killed in the army at a young age. The First World War. And my father, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, he was a cavalier officer in the Prussian army of Kaiser Wilhelm. And he was wounded in the war. And he was given an Iron Cross. So, of course, when Germany was defeated, because the truth is, they were out for power. They were out for power. But during the war, and even shortly after the war, we can't say that Germany was particularly anti-Semitic. But a little later after the war, there came along Hitler and blamed the Jews for the defeat in the war. And when he started ruling the country, my father was a lawyer, so he described what's happening now is Yasu Avel Alechok. There's a pasuk in Tehillim. They go and make iniquity the law. So he returned the Iron Cross, wanted to keep it. And then he left, Baruch Hashem, a few years before the war. If not, who knows? I wouldn't be able to tell the story. Before Hashem he left, he tried to persuade others to leave. My uncle, who had a synagogue in Frankfurt, and even came to us, and he decided he's staying as long as there are Jews there that need him. He's not going to leave his community. And then he was also killed by the Nazis. So Churchill says,
was that the right decision?
Churchill says that to understand the history of the Second World War, its origin is the First World War. So on which date did the First World War start? On Tisha B'Av. And he said it was the second 30 years European war, which existed a few centuries ago, the first one. This was the second one. So this demonstrates to us the situation as it has been. And we would say like this, what's happening today is very serious. And if we read what it says in the prophets, that before the Mashiach comes, we will be witnessing not just Esav, Edom, the Nazis, we'll be witnessing an intermingling of the evil and hate of Esav intertwined with Ishmael. Ishmael is based upon, it says in all the Sfarim, which you go to more deeply, on wildness, Ripere Adam. The wildness comes from giving in to the wild instincts of the human being for pleasure. And that exists amongst Ishmael. The paradise of the Quran is a paradise of the highest physical pleasure. And when that combines with the aggressiveness and cruelty of Esav, these are two different qualities. In fact, they're referred to as the aspect of Tumah of Chesed. Tumah of Chesed is wild desires, which is lust. And the Tumah of Gevura, of strength, is instead of self-discipline and strongly clinging to all the commandments of Hashem, that's Gevura of Kedusha, which was the quality of Yitzchak. So the Tumah went to Ishmael. So the Tumah went into Esav. The Tumah of Avraham, of Chesed, of Avraham Avinu, went to Ishmael, and the Tumah of Yitzchak Gevura went to Esav, who became a Gibor Tzai, became a hero of hunting animals, hunting humans, and killing. So when you have the combination of the two, which is how it's described before the Mashiach will come, and even all the 70 nations will be led by the spirit of Ishmael and Esav to produce the worst aspect, which is Amalek. And what's Amalek? That he even makes death and killing and cruelty in the wildest manner possible. And that's what we're experiencing today. Today there's a combination. Not only did the Mufti of Jerusalem become a partner with Hitler and distorted the moral aspects of the Quran and distorted entirely the other aspects of Yichad and corrupted them further to kill, do harm. As long as you look forward to the physical paradise, it's all intermingled. And they've added to it also the desire even to commit suicide if at the same time you can kill others, innocent people, or people who have a conscience. So this is the power of Amalek. Lo Yarei Elokim wants to destroy the conscience, and this is already danger for the human species. Tzelem Elokim. And we are here as a nation to spread the Tzelem Elokim for the whole world, to make mankind aware we've got a divine image. So that's the challenge that faces us today. And we see in our time that Hashem has indeed given us the antidote against both Esav and Ishmael in their combined activities of hate and destruction, and even the antidote to Amalek, who has Mesirut Nefesh. He gives himself over entirely in order to destroy others with him in this world. So this is mentioned in another verse in Tehillim, where it says, chapter 8, from the mouth of children, you Hashem have established Oz. The Ein Oz el Torah. Strength is learning Torah. You've established a group amongst the people of Israel who almost from birth are trained to dedicate themselves to the sweetness of Torah. But then it says, Leman Tzolarecha, this is in order to protect them against your enemies, Hashem. The enemies who want to destroy the human being and what it stands for, which is the divine image. Then it says, in order to remove the hashbit, oyev or mitnagem, the enemy. Now the word oyev is used throughout the Tanakh. It's a principle followed through if you learn the Tanakh thoroughly. Oyev and Sonei, about the people of Israel. Oyev is Ishmael and Sonei is Esau. So this is the way to protect mankind from the deadly power of Esau and Ishmael. And what does it say there? Hashbit oyev u'mitnakem. Mitnakem is not someone who takes vengeance. It's in the hitpa'el, the reflexive. It means someone who takes vengeance upon themselves. In other words, the quality of Amalek right from the beginning, he didn't mind attacking the Jews, although he knew would be killed. That's why their attack is compared to an attack of bees, who sting and die. So Amalek, that's how it's described in the Chumash, that's how it's described in Tehillim. He is willing to destroy the power of God in this world, which is the Jewish people, just out of vengeance. And he takes it upon himself. To die for it is the greatest happiness, the greatest celebration. To destroy also the maternal instinct. Mothers in Moloch worship, and also in the concept mitnakem, they make a party, because they know, they feel that whoever has killed, the more it's killed, the better. The greater is his reward, the greater is his paradise. So when we're faced with such a situation, what do we have to do? Hashem is giving these abilities, mesirut nefesh, to give up. You don't have to give up our lives. The greatest kiddush Hashem is not to give up your life. It's to use your life for the sanctuary of Hashem. And therefore, this dedication of selfless dedication to study the Torah and to fulfill it, to do chesed, do loving kindness, to spread love and remove hate, to spread life and remove mankind from death. And as it says, if Am Yisrael would only do teshuvah and return to Hashem completely, there would immediately be a change for the whole world. If we don't do it immediately, Hashem will bring us a tyrant whose decrees are as cruel as those of Haman. So Haman's manifesto was already established by Hitler and the Mufti. And today we're at the time when Germany, of all places, who banned Mein Kampf for so many years because they felt guilty, they're removing the guilt. They think they've paid enough money, and they published this year Mein Kampf, an expanded edition. They think that's the way they will be able to contain things. It's true that some individual will read it and they'll get a shock. But unfortunately, it works the other way as well. And there are all these signs that it's working more the other way. They read it and they'll say, oh, let's follow it. So they join Daesh. And especially now, what they're allowing these hundreds, even thousands, tens of thousands of all the refugees from Syria and other places, they're not able to check them, how much they hate Western culture and how much they hate America, they hate any civilized human beings. I read somebody who didn't look like a Jew, but he was a Jew, and a journalist, and he went into one of these refugee places in Germany, and he started talking, there's one of them, so tell me, if you'd have the ability, what would you do? What do you really want to do if you meet Jews? Everyone in that camp of these refugees, we will kill them. That's our real aim. He admitted it. On the surface, they're not going to say it to someone whom they don't feel is one of theirs. But he felt this person, he put on an act. This is not known by anybody who wasn't. Like one of theirs. Maybe even like a Sephardi Jew who would look almost the same, as you know, just to bring you a more humorous aspect, since we're dealing with Purim. It's well known. In London it was well known. There was a person, Meshulach, spoke Hebrew well, was a Sephardi Jew, and he collected a lot of money. And they found out, I can't say those, so how they, in the end they found out he was collecting for the Hamas. He was collecting for Muslims who want to kill the Jews. That's what he was collecting for. But he made out he had an institution looking after orphans, because he could speak Hebrew well. And you couldn't distinguish between him and some Sephardi Jews. You can't always know. And he developed good Ivrit, an Israeli Ivrit. That happened a few years ago. So there we have to, that's Amalek. So this is our situation today. But on the other hand, even they admit Hamas, the preachers of Hamas in the mosques in the last war to Iran, what they said, when they saw that all their missiles were not missing the target, apart from Kibbutz Baza, so of course they said God must love the Jews. Even they realize it. So let's hope that we'll follow the love of Hashem, the love of the Torah, the love of mankind, and Yitzhak Hashem will bring Am Yisrael to Teshuvah, and none of the threats we have from the enemies will become fulfilled, and we'll witness Biat Mashiach now.
Amen.
Amen.
Perhaps a public might come together